are important. I believe every team should use and do what works best for them. When I joined the design team in 2018, there was not one single source of truth as a part of our process. Instead, there was a tangled mess of different style guides by previous design teams that were not necessarily kept updated or documented. This wasn't anyone's fault. It's just a natural product of acquisitions and growth. It's difficult to keep track of. The engineers also had their own set of libraries that they would use to build products from. Some used self-built React components, others used Bootstrap, sometimes both in the same place. We're all over the place, and I saw a need to Marie Kondo the mess, so we could find joy in the process of using one system together. In my attempt to start cleaning this up, I began auditing everything we had that gave some sort of design direction to our process. From multiple design style guides to the developer libraries, branding guidelines from Oracle proper, to design systems from Oracle Data Cloud acquired companies. I created audits of icons, understanding what was being represented where and how, colors, and the 50+ slightly varying shades of gray we gathered over the years. The components, when buttons were round or rounded or square, typography, and the inconsistent sizes and weights throughout the app. The list goes on. In the summer of 2018, for my first hackathon with the company, I gathered some people together who were interested in building a unified design system, and we began frantically getting as many design decisions determined before time ran out, and it was our turn to present. For anyone who knows this show, I'm thankful we didn't have judges like Paul and Mary. If you don't know the show, you should watch the show. It's called The Great British. So we ended up presenting a rough version of what would later become our design system, after interest for its spread and value for this type of created by different teams and leadership. Okay, let's just watch this for a second. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so we called the design system Vapor, like what clouds are made of, like the data cloud, and this. Naming is hard, I'm sure we all know that, but the name spread and people became familiar with what it represented in our organization, which was some unification among design and engineering. That's what was most important. Once we had buy-in from engineering and leadership, we worked through getting Vapor to a point that different teams could start building products with it. We're fortunate enough to have a team that cares a lot about accessibility. Our engineering lead on Vapor built in accessibility tests like testing color contrast ratio and screen readers from the very beginning. It was very helpful to set values for ourselves and abide by these as we put a system in place and enforce those guidelines. Because we did this early on, we were able to continue to build and alter components as needs arise still today while thinking about all the different types of our users. This process presents its own challenges that we work through together with weekly group core contributor meetings that contain designers, front-end and back-end developers, managers, and whoever else is interested in weighing in. Anyone is always welcome to join and contribute. The difficulty I found within our design team is managing a system that is used by distributed members, different brands from the acquisitions, all with different access to file storage, software, and varying needs from a design system. Designers were everywhere, each with their own way of working, designing, and their preferences for digesting and using a system. For us, this doesn't mean creating one place to refer to for documentation and access to up-to-date files. At Oracle, we don't get to use Google Drive or Dropbox. Not yet. Instead, we have very limited access through many VPNs and networks to GitLab, Slack, and internal file storage and syncing tools. One of my favorite hip-hop artists, Odyssey, who's originally in the DMV area, has a line that says, "How can you police the streets of a neighborhood you do not engage in?" This holds very deep and important meaning in our society. But it also can make a bit of sense for me and the designers on my team who use Vapor. The most important thing for me is remaining intentional about communicating with everyone who uses the design system to understand how they use it, what their needs for new items are, and any issues they might be having with gaining access to files. We need to engage with the people we work with, especially when working distributed. This communication is mostly done through Slack messages and Zoom calls. I'm constantly checking in on people to see if they need anything from me. Also, these dogs are very cute. We found that it makes the most sense for us to have one person managing the sketch libraries, which is what we use for our design system. This means for me, as the design manager of Vapor, to make myself available at any time for anyone from Cambridge to Colorado to make a request for a new component or to fix something that I may have missed and get updates to them as soon as possible so they can continue their work. It also means making the files accessible everywhere and in any way people might need them. Like I mentioned, we use an internal file storage system to store and sync our files. Some designers have access to this folder that they can sync to, which provides the most seamless workflow with automatic syncing and sketch updates. Other designers find it easier to use our design system GitLab repository to manually pull changes and stay up to date. In addition, some designers don't have much access to these platforms at all, and they prefer a zipped folder that they can overwrite and update on their own machine. So it's important for me to make myself available and meet people where they are, and not only understand but encourage their individual and specific needs and preferences. As of lately, our newest challenge we've been presented with has been fusing the progress that we've made with Vapor with Oracle proper and their newly design system called Redwood. Since we are a smaller organization among Oracle, we typically move a lot faster and need to adapt more quickly with changes. So our system needs to grow and evolve as quickly as we are. We have been exploring new designs with Redwood while still maintaining a steady workflow with our own system, which is a bit more advanced in its current form than Redwood is. This is 2 Chainz, for anyone who may not know. He has a song that goes, "I'm different, yeah, I'm different." So in closing, I want us to walk away knowing how important it is for us to acknowledge the different places that we come from and the specific needs we have based on our access to resources. We should all encourage these differences in one another, which help us all work more efficiently, better together, and live our best lives. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I think we have a few minutes for those. About Oracle, about design systems, about finding GIFs, about dancing.
If you want to step off to the side, we can do computers at the same time. That would be questions. Since we have to do computer switch.
Okay. Let's do that. What do they do? Although, who doesn't want to watch JVM clap? Anything? Nothing? Okay.
Oh,
well,
let's go with audience.
So you,
that's okay. You go.
you mentioned that you don't necessarily have a single source of documentation of your design system. So how do you manage to keep everything consistent if there's no single source?
Yeah, so we do have a something that the engineers use a bit more than we do that hopefully we plan on organizing our own design documentation into. But again, it's only accessible through certain VPNs that not everyone has access to. So luckily our team is pretty small, and it's mostly about just staying in contact with everyone, doing a lot of design reviews once through different projects, as well as what I've done in the systems, in addition to just making components, is creating layouts for different types of pages and options that you could do. So it's a good place for designers to start from, and then again, the design reviews are really the best. Hold on, I think we had a question back here. We'll come up to you.
You may have mentioned this already, but were you all using libraries to save in your sketch files?
Yeah, so We have our specific design system is maybe like 5 or 6 different libraries. We have one for components, colors, typography, icons, and like a spatial scale. So using those individually makes it a little bit more easy, in my opinion, to manage. However, Oracle proper, their design system that we've started experimenting with, everything is in one design system, or one sketch library, which I've kind of found to like slow down Sketch a bit, but we're all trying to work it out. I think we have one here and one complete.
Yeah, just a kind of classic issue is that there are multiple design systems or design libraries or even design viewpoints inside of a company, and so you have this kind of established design system that is gaining a lot of momentum in the company as a whole, and then you have the system that you guys are using that's much faster. How are you guys actually talking about or planning for the actual merge? Because that's always one of the hardest issues.
Yeah, we're trying to do that now, planning for the merge between Redwood and Vapor. We also, within Oracle Data Cloud, have acquired companies that had an established brand before they joined us, and we want their user base to still know their brand. So that's a different challenge in itself. So far, they've been keeping their design and then slowly trying to fuse it in with what we're doing. But as far as how we fuse Vapor with Redwood, it's currently what we're talking through at this point. But it's just a lot of exploring. I think what we might end up doing is changing Vapor a little bit to look like Redwood, to at least find some like, visual consistency for different users, until Redwood is ready to with components that we can build with.
Similar to that question, I was going to ask about how you got the buy-in from the entire corporation, but how long did it take you to consolidate everything that you had so far and create something new? And then going from there, how long do you expect for the merge?
So yeah, like I mentioned, it was in the summer of 2018 that I did the hackathon. And I knew what I wanted to do for my hackathon project, which was start a new design system. So I guess I cheated a little bit and worked a bit on it before to do all the audits, which, not auditing every single little thing, but enough to show people that there's enough inconsistencies and a need for this type of work. And then in the hackathon, we made a few components and some example layouts. And it's evolved since then. The color palette has changed based on Redwood and the acquired companies and their design systems, trying to just fuse them all together. I think we're expecting maybe another year or so until we can then fuse it into Redwood. Anything else? Go ahead.
So how are you balancing time working on the design system versus working on projects?
I think right now we have the design system to a point where it's functioning pretty well. And so now it's mostly me. Developers continue to build new components, which I do as needs arise. It's mostly just finding a balance in my own schedule to make sure that I can help people who need new design assets from the design system, update things when Smart Layout came out, which I think someone's going to talk about tonight. I had all the components to use that. So it's just a matter of finding a good balance in my own schedule, my own time, to do both. Yes.
Last question.
Okay, last question.
So when it comes to animation, do you also edit to your system, or is it a totally different file and document?
We haven't been able to dive too deep into animation, which I really like to do. Some components use very subtle animation or transitions. We can tackle that as we build that component with the engineering team. But ideally, we'd like to develop some animation guidelines and how things move and why they move that way. Yeah. Cool. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Is this still yes? Okay. Somehow I almost started playing Spotify, so apologies for that. Lost my notes, but that's all right. So we have Siqi Wei, who's at Social Tables, product designer there, and she's going to talk us through her work at Social Tables. Do you want to?
Yeah, that'll be easier. Sorry about the noise. Hello. A little bit shorter, or a lot more shorter. Oh, forgot to connect. The presentation that Derek gave was really awesome, right? And all the animations, apologies for not having all the fun stuff on my slides. And I probably have a more boring and more academic definition of a design system, which I come over a few years ago when I dive into, get myself familiar with the design system that I think the Nielsen group, they have a version of defining the design system, which composed of 3 parts. I think the first is the design guidelines, which are the principles that's the foundation of the design system. And the second part is a pattern library, which it's a collection of elements and component patterns that are having the design guidelines around and interaction guidelines around it. And a third part will be a component library, which is kind of coded based. It's like, well, basically that's in code and it's built, and the engineers then grab and use to build products. I kind of align with that, and as you may see here in my presentation, that I kind of adopt that kind of as the definition, and I'm gonna talk about. So I'm Siqi. I'm a senior product designer at Social Tables. For those who might not heard of this company, we are a DC founded and based company that currently a part of the event. And we build softwares for event planners and hoteliers to make successful events. So at Social Tables, I led the design team for building the sales and catering system, which is a CRM solution for the hotels to manage their group bookings, sales, and events. I have a side job there, which is running points for the design system project that has been quite successful in the way that the design team and engineering team to standardize the design patterns and increase the work efficiency. So I had the pleasure to share my experience with you and a few learnings that I got from this project. So how do we start? I joined Social Tables in 2017, and Social Tables is a company. We have many products that serve different needs of our clients, such as we have the diagramming tools, have the seating tools, have the check-in apps, and have proposal tools, venue searching platform, etc. And we built all of this to serve the needs across the industry. And the hospitality industry is brand new to me when I start. So as a part of my onboarding goal, I need to dive into
the different products to fully understand the needs there and to connect the dots. So I look into each of our products, and as many of you may guess, that's when so many different design patterns across the suite. And so I think this was a result of a rapidly growing company that we keep have many products to serve the needs, and we have different versioning of the products, and these are all built by different designers and design teams, different designers and the product teams. So there's we are lack of the standards there. But however, as we need to scale and with the vision to provide a cohesive platform experience, we do need a standard there. In addition, we had a growing design team from one only designer to a team of 5, and we are all distributed in different product teams. That a unifying design language will help the team and to provide the consistent product experience in many ways. So I talked to my manager at the time and to brought up this idea to build a design system, and I was willing to run points and kind of take it as a passion project on the side. So she was very supportive, and we got some buy-ins from the leadership as well as the engineering team. So we made a plan for it. So we started with defining the basic design styles, including the colors, the typography, spacings, accessibility goals, and then we collected UI patterns that we commonly use across all the products, and created the design with interaction guidelines and the best practices that documented in the same place. After we have the basic components, we work with the engineering team to create a code-based component library that allowed us to build the product quickly. So it has been a joint effort of both the design team and the engineers to push this project so far. Earlier this year in June, we launched our design system version 1, and we named it Stella, as we hope it to be our guiding star in building great product experience. So looking back to this journey, there are many lessons I learned, and so I'm gonna share it with you, hopefully spark some thoughts. So first of all, I found it really critical to set a clear scope, especially as a team that looking into the industry, and you can find a lot of design systems out there, and they're at different scale across the spectrum. We many of us, I believe, we heard of the IBM's Covering Design System, which is like a full set of components with very detailed documentation as well. And there's like Mailchimp's design system, which is has more focus towards marketing content. And there are also many code-based open source component library there. But at the end of the day, your design system should serve your product. And you want to look across your entire product suite to decide how much your team need, what patterns that are really necessary, and what other use cases of them, so that you can plan better and build faster. For example, at Social Tables, most of our softwares are web-based, and some of our products has the compact UI, such as the floor plan designer. If you imagine the sketch tool for event planners to move the tables and chairs around. So we need to be mindful of the spacing. So we decided to focus on the web and build the interaction patterns around it. We also aligned the goals that we started with design style that we created a designer's UI kit. So all of our designers can start using it. So all of the new products and or the independent modules will have the consistent look and feel. Another takeaway that I have is that a dedicated team is really ideal. At Social Tables, we don't have a dedicated team for the design system project. All of our designers and engineers who contribute to this project so far, we have our full-time responsibility and we work with our product team. So the collaboration is really crucial. Luckily, we have a really good culture of collaboration at Social Tables, so we remain a very high level of communication day to day. That really helped with this project. So currently, for the design system team, we kind of it's really a combination of a few designers and a few engineers, and we have this design system committee, and we meet at a regular basis bi-weekly to go over the Stella related topic and to check on the processes and to check on the building progress as well as any blockers that we want to identify. So another one, I find it really helpful to have the anatomy of the components. When we design for each component, I like to slice it to different parts and specify their purposes. This is in the spirit of atomic design, that it gives us better understanding of what are necessary parts, while others are optional. This definition really helps to prepare the components from the design side before handed over to the engineers to build it. And it also helped them clarify each component. So what parts can be built as an optional like token or something. So it can be easily turned to remove or add it in. We also kind of learned this from our myths as well. We did it for most of our design components. However, for example, at the beginning with our drop-down menu, that it's a pretty common component that we forgot to noted that it is actually a drop-down button or like a field triggers the menu component, which they are supposed to be separated. That's after we implemented the first version, we realized that some places we use the drop-down, for example, in the modal, that you'll click on the drop-down and it shows up the menu, but still within the container of the modal, which is kind of wonky. So we kind of learned from that and definitely try to hopefully building it, note it out, and avoid that mistake. Another thing I found it extremely critical is the documentation and the education for the teams adopted. We have a documentation of the principles, design principles, the component anatomy, and the best practices. I think this is the foundation of helping people understand why we're doing this and how we can utilize this component in a proper way. Most of the guidelines we have live in the design documents that is on Wiki, and we have, well, luckily in our case we can use Box and Google Drive to share and sync our component library. So as long as you in Sketch, as long as you adopt that symbol library, it's always in sync. So that's one of the benefits there. We also have for the engineering side, we also have a storybook, which is the code base and with all the instructions of how to use this component. So our engineers, among all the product team, they come into one central place and they can copy the code and use it in their product. Besides the design elements, I found that establishing a governance process early on is also critical. It helps us clarify responsibilities in this cross-functional team, as well as the approach to introduce new design components or modify the existing one. We are also kind of follow the what's kind of recommended in the atomic design. Like they have an article about how to governance your design system, and we find that flow extremely helpful. And we are still in the process of adopting it, and we'll see how it goes. Another takeaway is that context over consistency. When we designed the components, we were on the use cases that we already knew at the time. However, as the new scenarios emerge, the original requirements may become a limit. For example, we originally have a day picker as a pretty normal one. So you can navigate back and forth using the monthly pagination. However, in the event industry, especially if you think about the planners booking a conference, they usually book it really far out. So they might book the venue 2 years ahead. In this situation, if you just imagine how you will paginate by month, you have many clicks, and you don't want to do that. So after learning all this scenario, we kind of decide that for one, we also provide a year navigation, and as well as in a lot of cases, it will be very useful if the field can be just entered with their keyboard. So a lot of combinations there as an improvement to that specific component. So I always suggest our designers to focus on solving the problem rather than stick with the set rules that with our existing components. We try to build our components with the flexibility, so you can use it as a block, but customized to suit the needs of the product. Sometimes it may sound risky to open up the box of inconsistency, but a design system, I believe, should really be a breathing and living ecosystem that each components can individually evolve. We need a better process in place, and as my team is still working towards a better process to manage that changes, the first thing we already kind of have in place is to document all the changes in the wiki. So in summary, it has been a really fruitful journey, and I believe this is worth the investment to build out this valuable assets for our team at Social Tables. So our design system help us allow us to be able to design and prototype new ideas much more quickly at a lower cost. So at the end of this presentation, I'd like to share a quote that I really like from Nathan, that a design system isn't a project. but it is a product serving the product. I do treat our design system as a product that I would try to manage and have it evolve along the way. So I also included some of the resources that I find really helpful. And thank you. I'll take questions. Yeah, I think the question is how do we schedule the meetings to communicate across the team to. Yes. So we have utilized some of the some tools. One thing is that we have a wiki. Originally, we have a Airtable. It's kind of a spreadsheet of all the of all the design components that we have with the versioning and the status of it, which one is already built, which one is still in design or still in development. We use that to kind of track our progress. But recently, I think after summer, we kind of transitioned to Jira, so we have a Jira board to manage building process. We do have a wiki that have all the have a change log to that, and we also have a Slack channel for the design system team, so people can post questions there if they have any, and also we use Zeppelin to deliver the design assets for the components. And if there is any changes in the Zeppelin, we kind of build this hook into the Slack. It will send update to people. So these are a few ways that we are doing.
You have kind of unique space in some of the assets you provide. If you have 3D mapping tools or anything like that that can be in your library as well, or is it just traditional?
That's a good question. Like 3D, it's really cool. We do have a 3D visualizing tool for our diagram. It's one of our premium feature. It's really cool. So if you map out a space and then you click the 3D view, you can go into it and just act as playing the game, the RPG games, and then you can just go around to see the space in actual. But we don't identify that as our design patterns. We have we are gradually building out that the components, but we need to have like a common agreement that this is a pattern that is used across all the products rather than just one product, if that makes sense. We currently have 5 designers across, and then we have about 5-6 sprint teams working on different products. We kind of, our design team is kind of have some fluctuation because of the acquisition of our company, but we kind of remain at a good size as of right now. So because our team is also distributed into different products, the design system is, its value is really to help all the designers aligning the design patterns there. The engineers are not, I would say not all of our products are using the same code base. So our approach is that at the beginning, at least the designers are designing the products with consistent patterns. So the engineers across different teams will build a screen or build the products using their normal code base. But this is because of the nature of how our world is. We really need to build a product quickly. But we are trying to adopt the same code base. So I believe at least 2-3 of our products are using the library maybe. But there are others still kind of in the process of adopting.
Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and transition over to Vlad.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Vlad is with AudioBurst and also runs the Sketch meetup in DC. And you're going to be talking about smart layout, I believe. So sort of getting in, no? Okay, never mind.
Should I use mic? No? I can scream. Do you want me with the mic or without the mic? With the mic, without the mic. What do you prefer? With the mic, without the mic.
With the mic.
With the mic. Right. Oh, everything's so small.
It has to be one tall person.
Is that too tall? Is that good?
Okay. It's connected, but it's not showing anything. Cool.
It just connected.
It is. It is like. Let's check. Hi, I'm Vlad. This is my homepage. How do you like it? I'm a digital guy doing different stuff in DC, and I'm organizing crazy events. That's it. If you have any questions, just come to me after the talk. Oh, thank you. I'm also representing Sketch. How many people use Sketch? How many people use Figma? Respect you guys, but I'm not supposed to talk about it. So, Sketch 60 is out, which is basically a new feature of representing bunch of layouts and bunch of text styles and bunch of symbols in your. So I was expecting that, but I heard that it's breaking stuff a bit. So you might, wait for it. But it's kind of cool. So basically, Sketch is declaring that they are about design systems. How cool is that, right? Perfect timing with our meetup today. I already gave that talk like 2 weeks or I don't know, like 1 month ago. So I don't want to do the same thing. I just will place a bunch of advertisement throughout my talk and basically. So the first thing, if you want to get the free Sketch license, which is $100, you're supposed to take a selfie of yours or your friend today. Just put the photo out in social networks, either Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, with the hashtag SketchWashington. You can add hashtag NoVA. You can start doing that right now because $100 is $100. Okay? Just take any photo from the event. Okay. The second thing, because my talk is like kind of technical and I was supposed to show you how to do stuff in Sketch, which I realized might be boring and it's hard for you to grasp because it's like. So if you go to Meetup page, this NoVA UX, scroll all the way down, you see the link. You can click the link at your home and you listen for a video recording how I'm doing the stuff which even Sketch didn't do. They supposed to do, but they didn't. So just, in your home, looking at my presentation or a video, because it's like video tutorial. But I will cover like beginning and reasoning behind that, but I will not cover the exact performance of that because you're gonna be bored, okay? So closing that, you have a link to that article. It's on Medium, so. Now about design systems. How many of you know Bootstrap?
Bootstrap is the most popular and accessible design system without branding and like philosophy and voice tone part. Okay, and historically is just the most popular thing. Those who know the Bootstrap, do you know any other super popular, open, accessible design system that everybody can use in their products except your Oracle? Any other design system? Come on, you know it. Material, yeah, but respect for foundation. I've been in their office once in San Jose. Pretty nice. Okay, and do you know another one, like a third one, like a very cool third one, high quality design system? No, you know, because here I am. I'm going to tell you about it. It's Blueprint.js. Blueprint.js by whom? By Palantir. Very nice guys doing a lot of cool stuff, which they're not going to talk about, but they open source that React, like a code base with a sketch file, and the main difference between Blueprint.js and Bootstrap, because developers hate Bootstrap and developers kind of like React, and this is an amazingly done library. So if we go to the documentation, by the way, it's always open source, so you can use it and you can build a system based on that if you want, unless you're Oracle and you already have the design system. So that's pretty cool, like all interface of documentation, and you can go to search and just type select. Oh, I have a big screen, much bigger than I am. Sorry. Yeah, like this. Okay. And this is example I'm going to talk about. Probably in your design system, you don't have a button with two icons, do you? Do you have a button with two icons in your design system? You see, that's why I shouldn't talk about it, because you don't care. You don't care. But if you want to, like, how many not designers here are managers? If you want to drive your designers crazy, ask them to do two icons button sketch and make it flexible. They'll die like after maybe a week of trying. It's simple. Like, and you know, if you want to fire somebody, like, hey, do this little thing, you know, make it flexible, and so we can use it and distribute it across our organization. Like, no, sure. So, you know, I felt like I don't like when something is not, you know, I'm not able to do something, and it's supposed to be, it's just supposed to be easy, right? Like a sketch, and this is a smart layout release. So I thought it's easy, but it's not, and even Sketch didn't do that properly, which is kind of hard. So why Blueprint.js? On March, I found them and like, wow, how cool is that? Nicely done design system with a bunch of components. And as a developer, I like a bunch of components. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna use that. But they had amazing design system in Sketch like this. All the components, you see, nicely done. Expensive designers got big salary. But nothing of those were like in components. I'm like, what the fuck? And you know, I wanna fix that. And like, hey guys, you know, can I want them because volunteer. And like go in the GitHub and like, hey, can I compatibilize your library? They're like, we're doing that, but we're lazy. It's like a lot of time. If you want, go ahead. Like, oh, I'll be finished in 2 weeks. Easy peasy. And like so exciting, and I started doing that. And like I started doing that, and what I did, like, okay, I'm gonna do all the components for that thing. And like, okay, light theme, nice, and I kind of have the background of doing that and color components. And I'm like, oh, there is a dark theme, which is kind of cool, but and I might need 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Okay, and I have a job. Probably I should be fired from my job and doing that. Then like, okay, and like, okay, I'm gonna start doing symbols, like start from buttons. If you want to do design system, start from buttons. This is the base component. You start from buttons, and we do like small buttons, big buttons, and you do like light buttons, and you do buttons with icons, and you do round buttons, buttons with 2 icons, and icon buttons, then simple buttons, buttons, a bar, and the thing, 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 and Sketch is fucking slow after a while, and you're like, what the hell? And you're like, whoa, Figma, you're trying to import all that stuff, and Figma is kind of working faster. You're like, what the fuck? And like, he's like all upset, but kind of, I kind of did it. I did it, like, okay, now, like, it's a lot of time, guys. And if you want, as a designer, if you want to perseverate in source, go to any open source, unless you want Oracle, open source place of a library. If I don't know if Oracle open source that, maybe you can go and help them to computerize and improve their like either Figma library, either Adobe XD or Sketch. It's kind of mechanical work, but you learn a lot through that because as a in universities, like if you're architect, you're just basically copying stuff. A lot of copying, you need to teach yourself. So what I did, I kind of copied good designers, and I know like all the shadows of blue and how they did stuff, and kind of spend a lot of time, enjoyable. So I didn't finish in 4 weeks. Okay, I didn't finish now because there's a dark layout and a bunch of stuff I need to do. So I was waiting for Sketch Smart Layout because of flexibility. It's like amazing promise, right? You can do stuff. So, and I got this like update like 1 month ago. Oh, Smart Layout. And I have 2 icon button, right? I can proof any design system, show me 2 icons button. Because it's like many different things you can start think about it. Like Sketch, file, new, start from template. Where's the template? Okay, template, and here I go. Smart Layout tutorial by Sketch. It's supposed to be amazing, right? Everything's supposed to be smooth there. So we go inside, and like, oh, nice instruction. Designer did it, for sure. Nice instruction how you should do things, and like how they're gonna work amazingly. And I'm kind of engineer. Okay, show me the button. Come on. And I take the button. This is the button with flex layout from Sketch. Okay, like you're like, okay, I'm gonna change the width of the button. No. First, let's do this like smart layout thing. I'm gonna change the text. What the icon is moving. Text is changing, the icon is moving. Okay, maybe something wrong with that. Leave it like, we can fix it. Maybe just change the width of the button. What the fuck? Is this Sketch like a great designer with icons I like? And no, it's not working as it should. Yeah, it's working on a simple example. Let's go to this tab and have button and go and change stuff. Yeah, it's working, right? And simple thing. But I need this 2 button icons, like how can I, so like I decided maybe there's no way to doing that. And later I figure out there's a way. So, but it's super complex to show you how to do that because you just go and watch a video and you watch and like everything is working there, but it's even showing that it's hard. But basically the idea is that there are 2 types of those buttons. One will be content driven, another will be a general width container driven, and depends on which one you need. For example, you want with a central label and icons stick to the label from the left and right side, you do one approach. If you want like a button with a left aligned icon and then icon to the right side, you do another approach. And I also attach the file, and you have all of those stuff there. So basically, it is working, but it's not easy to do, and I'm afraid not many people did it. Probably nobody. And if you don't have 2 icons button, just screw it. Don't do it. Now, advertisement. I'm doing hackathon. Hackathon. A lot of things happens in the hackathon, and you can go to. Can I scroll down like this? You go to UX result. UX. Can you see it? Not at all. Okay. UXresult.com. You go and you click designer, unless you are Oracle. Oracle, if you are here, listen to me. You see those partners here? So, which one I don't have? I don't have CNN, I don't have Oracle, I don't have Widget with the great expensive office, super cool. Please, talk to me, join the hackathon. You can do it for free. You shouldn't do it for free, but you can do it for free. and you can provide, nice design challenge and nice prices to people. And is $1,000 price? What does it declare? It declares somebody, right? Somewhere it should be. No. Okay, there is $1,000. If you share that page, there's like a preview, and there's like $1,000 there. Basically, I decided to organize hackathon myself, and I talked to my wife, like, I need $1,000 for December. I'm gonna give it to the best designer. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? What are you doing there? And slowly I got some sponsors, and hopefully I'll just pay myself part of it. But why design hackathon? Because job is boring and you're not productive near the Netflix. So come Saturday, do great things, do out of the borders design challenges. You can pick any of the design challenges we will provide you, or you can come up with yours. And we have amazing judges, except this one. This one's the worst. But all of them are great. I'll add more, so please join. Any question about design system, component, sketch, Figma, my life as an organizer of hackathon? Please do. Come on. Just ask a question. At least one. No questions? Cool. You see, I'm saving you time. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're going to bring everybody up at the end for questions as well.
Especially CNN Digital, Capital One.
All right, so now we got Jim. Jim, I think you're going to be talking about journey.
Virtue, yeah.
Yes. All right.
I am not 6'5". But damn, it's good to be back. Hi, everybody. Hi. Let me get this plugged in. Maybe this. One second while I turn the mirroring back off. I do not have speaker notes. I am going to wing this. All right. And yes, we're going to bring it. Is everybody still here? All the speakers still here? We're going to bring everybody back at the end, just in case anybody thinks of any questions. And first of all, a big hand for the other three speakers. Those are some fantastic talks. So thank you. Yes, sure, why not? So, my name is Jim Lane, and founded the group and organizing the group. Tonight I'm going to talk about some work I did at Virtue. 1 year ago, Virtue, a little over a year ago, Virtue hired me to come aboard and build a UX team from scratch. There was nothing, no team, no tools, no process, nothing. And so that's a really cool opportunity. In fact, I was at an InVision dinner a few days after I started and was sharing with the other folks there about this opportunity. It's like, wow, that's really cool. You never get to do that, to kind of come in like clean slate, start from scratch. So, needless to say, we didn't have a design system. Hell, we didn't even have tools to use. So, in the last year, we've done a ton of work. It's a fantastic team. And I wanted to share some of the stuff that we learned. So, Virtue is a data protection and privacy company. We're DuPont. And focus on a lot of different product interfaces for sharing email, for sharing files, and then also we have an SDK we just released for sharing data. So like that drone can encrypt data and send it to that drone over there. Really, really, really cool stuff in the government sector, healthcare, finance, and a lot of product interfaces, plugins, web applications, browser extensions, application plugins, just like a lot of different product surfaces that already existed. So when we started the team out, we realized pretty quickly we were going to have to be able to scale design fast, because it was a relatively small team and a lot of product already existed. So we did similar to what you've been hearing tonight, we do use Sketch. We do use Sketch. We use Sketch's symbol libraries. So we have shared libraries embedded in Sketch files. Those project files and shared libraries are all stored in Abstract for version control. So when you start a new project, you actually start a project in Abstract, create a Sketch document, add the shared libraries, and boom, the library is just there. You can just drag and drop elements into the page. Super easy, really, really rich, and I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but just to kind of show you guys. I'll talk in a second how it's atomic components, so things like colors, and these are just some of the more complex components, headers, footers. I want to talk about white labeling in a few minutes. And then also typical buttons, drop downs, all that kind of junk. So it's a pretty elaborate system. This is just a tiny little piece of it. And huge kudos to the team for being able to accomplish a hell of a lot in a really short period of time. And so Sketch is the design tool, Abstract, version control, Storybook for JavaScript components, and it's just a whole bunch above, which is really, really cool. By the way, subtle tip, if you're trying to use Sketch and do things like placement of buttons with multiple icons, things like that in Sketch, cool idea to make sure everyone's using the same version of Sketch, and you can use Slack to keep everybody updated at the same time as Sketch updates, because you can really screw yourself up in libraries because things change quickly, and if people are using different versions of Sketch, bad things happen. So again, atomic design. We use the kind of classic definition of interaction. So an atom is something that has no interactions. A molecule is something that has one interaction. It's made up of atoms. And then organisms are more complex. They're made up of atoms and molecules and involve more than one interaction. So those are the kind of typical kinds. So, basic design system stuff. You've heard us talk about this stuff tonight. Tonight, though, I wanted to talk about some of the things that we don't always talk about as much with design systems. So there's process stuff, and there's all the little cool elements, and all designers, we always geek out on all the little design details. But I wanted to talk about a few things that don't come up as much. And I'm going to start by saying I'm going to be quoting both work we did as a team and also some other folks. I've been DMing with Nathan Curtis, by the way, giving him a shout out for all of us quoting him all evening. He's amazing. If you haven't seen his work on design systems, I've known Nathan a long time, back at AOL. He's been talking about, it used to be like patterns, and then shared patterns, and then shared libraries using PDFs, then pattern libraries, then design systems. This guy's been talking about this kind of work for a really long time. So if you've not checked out Nathan Curtis's stuff, he's a super talented guy and gives talks and workshops and stuff. My friend Art, who's on my team back at Virtue, did a longer version of this talk 2 months ago. I'm just going to show a couple slides about it, talking about spacing. So as designers, we think a lot about grids, right? How we lay things out. In Virtuoso, which is the name of our design system, we wanted to go a step further and look at how things are spaced outside of a grid. So when things are sitting beside each other. How do things align when they're in a row or they're in a column? We wanted to have a standard way of spacing things and then be able to build that spacing into the components. So that when I utilize a component from the library, I can hide or show the spacers, they're there, and I kind of see how everything lays out and everything aligns really nicely, whether or not it's necessarily aligned to a grid on the page. And this was kind of a big deal. Because it allowed us to really get specific into how things were laid out in really complex design. In this case, we were dealing with email. We were building directly into Gmail, directly into Google Drive. And so some things we had control over, some things we didn't have control over. But what Art did, which was really cool, was came up with this geometric progression based on 24 pixels, which is also the line spacing of copy in the system, so that we could use these spacers and have just a really simple way of laying things out, so that there was real consistency between this page in this web application, in that mobile app, in that browser extension. We could have pretty consistent spacing and layout, which is really kind of neat. It's a simple thing, but it had a really big impact, especially when we were working with a third-party design agency out in San Francisco. Really talented guys, but we got their stuff. We're trying to figure out how do we make their designs align with these designs and make it all feel like it's on purpose, because the spacing was all over the place. So That's spacing, and in Sketch, by the way, you can adjust the nudging settings so that you would nudge to the group that you've set up with spacers, which is pretty cool. Content. So, Carrie, who knows Carrie Hain? Member of NoVA UX, spoke, I think he spoke at DC UX. Super talented. She just did a book this year on content strategy. And she hit me up on Twitter and said, "You're going to talk about content, right?" I said, "Well, I am now." So, content is really important. Content's the foundation of everything that we do. It's the reason why are we designing an interface? We're conveying interactions, we're conveying content. And design systems will talk about things like topography and capitalization and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, we don't get into more of the kind of a broader look at how content acts in the experiences that we're designing. So, for instance, how are we constructing? How do we show instructional text? How do we construct phrasing? How are they positioned? How are they capitalized? Working with a marketing organization to make sure that products and marketing are aligned when it comes to voice and tone and content conventions. Product lexicon, are we being consistent with how we talk about the names of products and features? Which seems kind of duh, but if you're not really careful about that stuff, well, the feature's capitalized one way over there, it's capitalized a different way over there, and to name something completely different in that particular documentation, and then you don't have, then you're really confusing people. And then additional interesting thing is how's the design system itself documented? So if someone joins the organization and I'm a new designer and I want to use the system, how is the documentation for the system itself structured? So I understand how it's organized, I understand how to use it, and it's really well-written documentation as to how to use the system. At Google, the team that worked on Google Pay, this was the diagram they did to show how they took kind of a pyramid approach to content strategy. And they said, we're going to have a copy system that sits right next to our design system, and it starts right up at the top with the tagline for Google Pay, and then works its way all the way down to microcopy and support copy. So they took a really thoughtful approach. That was a really interesting example where they really took the care to think about how does content work in this world we're creating. Next, this is a fun one. So quick aside, in Virtuoso, we wanted to have illustrations as kind of part of the style of the system. And we took a library and adapted it so we had our own kind of componentized library of illustrations so that we could construct people of different genders, different clothing, different jobs, different whatever, ethnicities and so on, so that we could construct images to show in product. Might be in marketing images, might be in the product itself, onboarding, sequences, and it's all symbols. So it's just like dragging a button or a drop down on the page. I can easily construct an image using these symbols right in my onboarding design that I'm working on. But this opens up some interesting questions. So when you start thinking about how we put those things together, it frees up some really interesting ways of extending the system. So for instance, white labeling. If a partner wants to white label Virtue's tools, there's certain things that we give them the ability to customize, and there's certain things they can't customize. One of those is, hey, these illustrations don't go with our brand. They might want to change them, they might want to exchange them, so thinking about how malleable we wanted those components to be. Internationalization, this was a big deal. There's certain sensibilities in different cultures, and we had to be able to alter the images by hair color, outfit, gender, etc., and really be sensitive to that. Same with verticalization. Hey, this version of this particular partner who's paying us a bunch of money is a healthcare company. This happens to be an education company or a legal company. This system makes it really, really easy to verticalize images, and so now these two people are talking in a doctor's office, or they might be talking in a lawyer's office, or in a school, or so on and so forth. And then also accessibility and inclusion, obviously. So it was a great way to think about not just images, but about the system itself of how does design systems end? How are they inclusive? How are they international? How are they accessible? And again, you'll think about these things probably later, but it's it's a good idea to think about some of them early on in the process because they add a level of complexity to how you construct the design system. And if you wait till the end to think about it, it's kind of a pain in the neck to try to retrofit. So something to think about. Governance. Siqi already talked a little bit about governance this evening. We came up with a process for how do we make changes, how do we add new components, when does that show up in the project process. If the designer identifies that there's a new element that isn't in the design system that's really called for in this design, then there's a design system meeting that comes in front of a group, we discuss it, we decide whether or not it's really a uniquely new component that we want to do. There's a process then, they'll work on it, we'll approve it. We use Slack to let the development team know that there's changes coming. So you really want to have a process you've worked out. This is not just a design problem, but this also include product, include marketing, include engineering, all the people that are stakeholders in the process. The more you can make them part of the process, the more it can be a really living system, and not just something the designers are doing over in the corner. I think that's really, really important. And then this is the last one. I wanted to mention this one because this one's really tricky. Someone asked a really great question about do you have a metric for how many designers are using how many components, something like that. This is a really, really important thing, and I'm doing it at the end. I could have just as easily done it at the beginning because it's important to think about why are we doing a design system in the first place. So usually there's an answer like, well, we want to go faster, or we want things to be more consistent, or we want to make it easier for someone to pick something up and do something constructive. So, okay, how do we measure that? How do we know whether it's done or not? And here I'm going to go. I'm going to quote Nathan Curtis. So if you're watching, Nathan, thanks, man. Who basically made the point that, hey, great, you've released a design system. That is not success. That's a task, that's great, but that's not success. Success is whatever you hope to accomplish by building a system in the first place. And so hopefully, when we kind of go into that process, we can ask ourselves, what are we trying to accomplish? And if our company does, for instance, OKRs, who knows what OKRs are? Who doesn't know what OKRs are? You do not know? Okay, great. Objectives and key results. So kind of annual goals, think of it that way. How do we express what we want to do with this design system? What are our goals? So for instance, let's say one of our goals is we would like some percentage of all of our products to be consistent, to follow the design guidelines and the brand guidelines that we have established. Great. What's the key result? Well, it could be by such and such quarter, some percentage of our most important products will utilize these guidelines. Or the product organization has committed that by such and such quarter, X% of our products will utilize these components or utilize these guidelines. Or there's some recency. Maybe there's some, this often we will make sure that products are being refreshed and that we're keeping things aligned so that we're not allowing things to fall out of consistency and so on. So being able to articulate these as specific and measurable goals is a way to say, hey, are we done? Is this successful or not? Speed of delivery, right? Great. We want to go faster, and we really did. I mean, by the time we had Virtuoso in place, we were moving really quickly through designs because it was we could turn out a prototype really fast. So how do you measure that? Designer is able to render designs X% faster, or the same number of designers are able to do X% more of what they do because they can go so much faster utilizing a system that allows them to design faster with us. And by the way, we have accessibility, customization, coverage, and so on. And then sponsorship is really important. So the idea of cross-team alignment of and this comes back to designers, engineers, product people, marketing. Is there participation that's relevant to design systems in, let's say, our agile ceremonies? So when we're planning a sprints or we're perspectives, are we talking about implementation of design system components? Are we talking about whether or not we were able to or not, or what worked and what didn't work? Has it sped up our commits? Or do we have less bugs? Are we doing less code? And are the people that are trying to use the system actually satisfied? Are we happy? Wow, I spend much less time working up wireframes. I spend a lot more time talking about our customers and their needs because I know I can move really quickly using these tools. This is just an example. I like to show this because it's pretty. This is a British mobile application shop. And this is literally shows a timeline of their the blue are a number of files, the green are insertions and deletions. So in other words, them doing code, right? Checking in, checking out code, and so on. And the red line is when they implement a design system. So what they're trying to show is visually, they can actually visually see that the amount of work they had to do radically dropped when they began using design system components because there's not as many bugs. Everything's pretty predictable. Components work the way you expect them to work. And it showed a really huge impact on their workflow. So it's kind of neat to be able to measure and visually demonstrate to an executive and say, look, there's your money. We invested in this, and now our teams are going much faster in thinking about things that really matter instead of arguing over pixels and drop-downs. So, super fast, but I wanted to bring up the other speakers so you guys can ask me some questions, ask them some questions. If you guys have any before we wrap up this evening, and then we'll usually, Jody here will probably do a little wrap up talk at the end. But portion of the talk, and now we'll take some questions. Where are my other speakers? Yeah, go ahead. Come on, guys. Yeah.
When you say you use Slack, is it automated or like is like a designer or like whoever is like making the change manually, like typing in I made an update?
Yes. We have some things are automated, like component changes, Slack versioning updates, and these are really hard. Slack updates. So things that are automated, we'll put into dedicated channels because we don't want to pollute the other Slack channels with a bunch of automated stuff. So we'll have dedicated channels for that, so you can kind of keep track of when libraries change or when sketch changes and that sort of thing. And then people will discuss in the design system Slack channel about changes to the system. And if anybody has questions for these guys too, I'll just hand them the mic. Jody.
I kind of have a question for everybody.
Yes.
Some of you talked about, having a dedicated team. Is there sort of a breaking point where you must have a dedicated team? Is there size of your team? Or is there some other measure that you can use to figure out when you need that dedicated team?
I have 4 designers on my team and myself, and we did not have a dedicated. Everyone worked on it, and while we were working on other projects. How about you guys?
Yeah, level 4 across a team of designers.
Yeah.
For our design system, we only have myself leading the design side of it. So coming up, every designer will contribute needs or feedback, but changes and creations will be done by myself. And then we have one engineer who does the same thing, but then also gets any engineers who want to be a part of it can also contribute and help build components. So mostly just 2 managers.
I think there should be one responsible, like in your country, for everything. It could be many people, but one person should be responsible. And if you don't have a responsible person, it's like VP of design.
Yeah, I agree on the ownership part for the efficiency kind of purpose. For our project, I started, initially it was myself to do the inventory auditing and then the documentations, and then we do have all the designers at the team involved to create the different components, and then we collaborate with the engineer. So as I brought up the dedicated team, I do believe that if at the very beginning we can work as a team more collaboratively and make decisions quicker and create all the process and documentation process, it will be we could have get this done maybe at a achieve this level of the design system much faster. Yeah.
Let me add it real quick. I also think in Oracle proper, there are teams that work on
Oracle.
design. Yeah, and I know I have a lot of friends at Cal. There are dedicated teams there that only work on it. I think when the larger corporations can afford to have, that have hundreds of designers, can afford to have teams dedicated to it. But like we're all kind of working as small parts of companies, and so that's not a luxury, unfortunately.
So hypothetically, if you scale this at 10x to a larger corporation, what would be some of the things that you're looking out for, or what you have as you're scaling your practice out? That would be something kind of interesting to the audience. You guys have been able to build this from scratch. I'm curious to see, like, as a roadmap, you say, hey, this is going to grow 10x. Hypothetically, what would be the number one thing that you're looking out for?
I have some thoughts, you guys. I think you have you have some interesting problems at scale, because large companies a lot of times, I think a couple of you mentioned, tend to acquire other companies, and so you have parent brands, you have sub brands, you have primary products, you have secondary products, and so I think as the system expands and grows, you have to start to think about there's what core things are we going to try to share as much as possible, and actually be a little more militant about no, you can't change the blue, and no, you can't round the buttons, because we want the customer to have a consistent experience across our brand of brands. But within those brands and within those acquisitions, there's probably going to be subsets of things because they're not necessarily going to follow the parent. So I think as you scale and start to have teams of teams, you have to start to think about how we plan how this will be used and how it will grow, and when is it good to be consistent and when does it maybe not matter so much.
I would say it's best, if we were to grow a bit more, it'd be best to find people who are consistently passionate about contributing and building a design system and understanding the value of one, but also passionate about different areas of one. So if someone is really passionate about making icons or accessibility, that would be really helpful.
I think we have an example of such case. On one side of the scale will be Bootstrap, the most popular, the most used library. So the secret behind it is just to have at least one URL, which everybody knows, and go there and take stuff from there. Then there'll be a team who maintaining that, and just like developers, version control, and they updating. We have Bootstrap version 5, I believe, right now, right? And Blueprint version 3 something. So it should be a core team which is developing and distributing updates, and should be one place, one URL that you know. And if you're a Cisco, you have a great budget for branding and components and style guides, but it is a fucking mess. You cannot find anything. I was at like an agency, it was under another agency, whatever, and it's super hard to find. And like you start arguing with the department, like marketing. Hey guys, your design system's saying that, but you're saying that. What should I do? And it's like not productive.
I can speak a little bit in terms of at a larger corporation, because as many of you may know, that Social Tables has been acquired by CVAN, which is a 4,000-ish employer company. That I had the pleasure to kind of talk to some of the designers on their design system team. CVAN does have a dedicated team for building their design systems. And I found that I read into their documentation, and I found that they have a more mature process and the team process, and also they have a team of passionate and experienced designers to build the design system. So at that scale, CVAN has much more products than we do, and across the larger span of industry as well. So I think it made more sense definitely for them to have that team to build something out, and they have been making really great progress. And I think another challenge for us is how our design system or how our products kind of adopt the design systems there, or what is the strategy moving forward. We're still in discussion, but I think luckily we are in the same kind of industry, so I think they have done some solid research into how to build particular components, and I'm pretty optimistic about it. I do like their process. I want to mention that they bring they bring a group of designers from across the product team to serve as the ambassador of the design system, so they can contribute their ideas and the use cases there. So that's pretty cool.
It sounds like that.
Yeah, right? It's like an instant panel. It's cool. How much time do we have? One more, one or two more questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little. It's something I really think about a lot. The future of design systems, tools that we use to create those systems. There's so many companies right now that are all vying for that, like, ownership of that space. I mean, there are 4 prominent tools that everybody's using kind of across the industry. And you'll see some people started with Sketch, early on, and now they're using that as their design system. Others, like, it's kind of, people are choosing now based on the extra features that are included with the tools. So if you want animation, you're going to be an XD, you're going to be a Vision Studio, and you have all these things that are kind of running in parallel. And so, just as a creative professional working with lots of different companies, I run into this issue where all these companies have all this sunk cost in individual tools that they use to build their design systems, and everybody's kind of running in parallel. And I don't know. I just wanted to hear what you guys think.
Diversity.
I just want to hear what you guys think about the future of the tools. Is there anything that you think we should look out for, or are we all just kind of doomed to wait for Adobe to start purchasing companies?
Well, that's already happening, isn't it? I mean, Figma's angle is, hey, Virtual. You're using Sketch and Abstract and Storybook, and yeah, you can just use Figma for all that. You don't need all those applications. How much are you paying for all those per seat per person? And you see Adobe's trying to do the same things. It's almost like M&A happening, right? Where you have these basically because the switching cost is huge. Once you've invested a ton of time and resources into one of these things, switching is a pain in the ass. Trust me, we tried. It sucks. So that's where I think is if someone wants to come in and own the space, and there's some really big names, and some smaller ones going after the big ones, going after Adobe and going after it. So, what do you guys think?
I think that I don't really see much of a merge of a lot of these, like the 4 main ones, which are Sketch, Figma, Adobe XD, and Vision. I kind of see them still doing their own thing, especially those 4 maybe acquiring other companies. At Oracle, you would like this. I hope that we don't. Well, I hope we don't switch because we have to go through a lot of process to get software approval. So I hope we stick with Sketch.
I think Microsoft is not dying, right? Everybody is in enterprises still use Microsoft and Office, right? No matter what. So same thing with Adobe, no matter what Adobe. And then we have nice designers with their Macs, but the work will be eaten by Figma because it's free. It's for Windows, that's it. It's the 2 features you need. Free and for Windows, that's it. Boom. Drop the mic.
I just have a bold thought. I don't know, like, I remember you mentioned in your presentation that the design system is not success until you have a coded based kind of component library. Because I think at the end of the day, you want to, the goal is to have the components built that you don't have to recreate the same pattern again and again. And like, if I'm just working by myself and create this component, the design patterns, and I hand it over to some engineers to build it out, and it's a fully flushed out kind of component library, and then maybe the other designers on my team, they can just sketch out something like, create this model over here, and all the model's gonna be the engineer, once they build it, they just grab the component from the library, and I would pretty much if you telling an engineer at Social Tables to create a button here, to create a primary button here, to create a modal here, to create a drop-down here, they all know what it looks like, and it should pretty much come out the same way. So I guess for designers, we will have the luxury at that stage when, no matter what tools that we use. I have a new designer come in, she really enjoyed doing paper prototyping, And even if this is the handover from her to the engineer, I think they'll build out something pretty consistent. So that's my.
Is that time? I think it's time.
Quick-
Thank you.
Quick poll. Has
Yeah.
anyone used design system mapping in the so raise your hand, I'd love to talk to you.
Well, we have to use it. We tried it in yes, and our UX director said it was just too
It's still kind of early.
technical.
All right, we'll talk afterwards. We're not going anywhere. Thank you, everybody. Jody's going to do a quick wrap up here, but thank you on behalf of the speakers.
So thank you to our sponsors, for Viget for hosting us, for Simply for Pizza and CNN for drinks. We're going to try and get, if the speakers are okay with it, get links out to presentations if you guys have them posted anywhere.
I don't have a presentation.
But you have a website.
But
I do have it on
But he has a
mine.
hackathon, so we're going to
There's a
look at
hackathon.
that. Next month's event, we'll get that posted up soon for you guys. If you're hiring, you want to do another quick raise of hands so people can find you. Yeah. And lastly, if there's a topic that you guys want to hear about, come find Jim or me or Alex. If you or your company's in hosting us, sponsoring, also please come talk to us. We're starting to plan out 2020, so we are a friendly crowd if you want to try out a new talk. And that is it. I know we're a little bit later tonight, so we'll probably hang out for just a few minutes, but if you guys want to keep talking, there's 4 Ps downstairs too. Well, feel free to go down there with a group of folks too. Awesome. Thanks for coming out.
Is that hackathon? Is that hackathon? Is that hackathon? Cool. Sorry. Everybody in the hackathon.